Hello, 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 and welcome back to yet another college football video. Week 7 Raad poll. A lot of interesting shit happened last week. Some just ridiculous. Um, I've been slacking a little. I was supposed to be uploading 3 videos a week by now. I got the videos made that I was supposed to record and upload to make it three. A lot of schoolwork that's been getting done. So I'm gonna record this today, upload this on Thursday. I'm gonna record the NFL predictions today, maybe as well. And then maybe next Tuesday college football, next Thursday NFL, next Saturday or Sunday. I you have a broad promise here that will be a third video up, maybe the Heisman list, my first edition of that. But get right into it, y'all. Thank you all for watching. Let's start with the Week 7 Raad poll. How do I do this one? I'm doing this on a new computer now, so not bad. All right. I hope I can see this well. So starting off with the top right here, I got Georgia back to number one, and I know the AP poll. I think they have Texas or Ohio State. I don't know what, but again, let me remind y'all what this means. This whole list is about the teams that I think would win the game on a neutral field, right? So I think if Georgia played anybody else in the country, even Alabama, on a neutral field, I would pick Georgia to win that game. Okay. Now I understand Georgia, they didn't look so good last week against Alabama, but they ended up only losing by what was it? I forget the score, like 5 points, something like that. Carson Beck, people were saying he had a bounce back game. I watched this game. Honestly, I don't know what it is, but I just don't like the Georgia offense. They don't have explosivity in the pass game, which they did last year, but last year they also had Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers. Maybe it's the receiving core because the run game, I don't think it's looked dominant. I just honestly, when I think of a position group on Georgia's offense, whether it be the receivers, the running backs, the offensive line, or the quarterback, nothing really blows me away. They're not getting hardly any production out of their tight ends as well. You know, Oscar Delp, guys like that, they just completely lost that element of their offense. I don't know what it is. They beat Auburn convincingly at home, but you should have done that. Like that shouldn't even have been a question on whether or not you were going to beat Auburn at home. Like they beat them more than they did last year, but defensively Georgia played well. They kind of shut down the Auburn offense. I mean, Peyton Thor didn't play bad. Like running back had a good game, but it's like they just I don't know what to think about Georgia when the big games come around anymore. I just don't. But I'm gonna put them at number one because I don't know, man. I really just don't know at this point. Next, we got Ohio State moving up to number two. They beat Iowa pretty convincingly. I watched the first half, and it was actually really close. Iowa was actually able to move the ball, believe it or not. And Ohio State's offense kind of struggled in the first half. I didn't watch the second half, but apparently Ohio State got together, and Will Howard had 5 touchdowns. This was probably his best game as the Ohio State quarterback. And as far as I'm concerned, do I think he's better than Kyle McCord was like? Because that's the question, right? That's what was holding Ohio State back. That's why they couldn't beat Michigan. I don't know. I really don't know. I have to wait and judge him until we get to a big game. I do not consider Iowa at home a big game at all. But he did just have his best game. I think the important thing is whether or not he's good. Their run game is legit. Their run game is great. Quinshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson, they are everything that they were made out to be. They are great. The receiving core is great. Carnell Tate is not having a really big year, but Emeka Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith are both ballers. And defensively, 4 sacks, 3 takeaways. I'm trying to think of a bad defensive performance from Ohio State yet this year. I can't think of one. Maybe there's been a few mistakes here and there, but Ohio State's defense looks like at least at that same level that it was last year, which was very, very good. So yeah, Ohio State. They listen. They still are my pick to win the national championship. I have them beating Georgia in the national championship, but yeah, I'm waiting for a big game. I've seen Georgia play the big game. I've seen most of these other teams play a really big game so far, but Ohio State, I'm still waiting on that. They play Oregon this week, which massive game. Absolutely. Oh, I got chill. I swear I got chills just thinking about that. Massive game, second biggest game of the year so far. I cannot wait to watch that shit. Next, we got Texas at 3. They had a bye week. I think Quinn Ewers is supposed to be returning. Their pass game looks really good, regardless of who's back there at QB. The run game, I'm actually really impressed with the run game. Obviously, they lost what's his name? Was it Baxter? I think they lost Baxter before the year to injury, and other guys have just stepped up. Jaden Blue. Damn, what's the other guy's name? I forgot the other dude's name, but they got a good stable of running backs, and they've all stepped up. Jaden Blue being the top dog there, and their running game has been able to really contribute to this offense. It's a great offense so far. Seven players you can see over 200 yards. Isaiah Bond, he has not blown me away. Like people are talking about he was going to come in there and be a Bolitnikoff finalist. He's not going to be anything like that. He'll have a similar stat line to guys like Worthy and AD Mitchell. Because if they play 13, 14 game season, he'll have like 900, 950, 1,000 yards, something like that, and he's a good player. But they really do it by getting everybody involved. It's a really brilliant offense, and defensively, nobody's really talking about how Texas's defense has been dominant so far. 7 points per game from a Texas defense. My concern was this defense, even more specifically the secondary. So I'm amazed. And the big transfer guy they got, Trey Moore from UTSA, he hasn't even got a single sack so far. So all these 13 sacks are from the other guys, like the group that lost Byron Murphy and Trevondre Sweat. Like this defense has really impressed me so far. Like I said, the entire season so far, you have to give Texas an A+ grade for just how they've played, how they've beat their opponents, like the quality of these wins. Texas is really playing. I'll say this: Texas is playing as the best team in college football right now. That's why I'm not mad that they're number one in the AP poll. And they started out at like five for me, I think, and now they're up to three. And if Ohio State loses, then certainly. Well, actually, if Oregon beats Ohio State, I might put Oregon at number one, to be honest with you. So I don't know. We'll see. Next up, though, we got Oregon at four. They beat Michigan State. This is the thing, right? When it comes to Oregon, after their disappointing start between Idaho and Boise State, since the win versus Boise State, people are thinking a lot better of Oregon now because Oregon has gone on to win three games and pretty much dominant. If you look at the scores of those three games, they've dominated the last three games. And Boise State looks like a really good. Well, they have a really amazing player on that team. So people are, I think, at least I am viewing Oregon much more softly after that performance. They were number what, three for me, or I think they were number four to start the year because I think I had Ole Miss. No, I don't remember if I had Ole Miss or Oregon at three. I think I had Oregon at three. Now they're back up to four. Um, the only concern I have for Oregon is that Dylan Gabriel has been turning it over a little too often. Like I was not expecting. Like if you look at Bo Nix, he might have thrown like five or six picks in like 30 games for Oregon. Like it was an amazing amount of protecting the football. Dylan Gabriel, I haven't watched these picks. I haven't watched the Oregon games. I have not been looking to see how bad these interceptions are. If it's like if the receivers are dropping it, or if it's a tip pass, anything like that. But the turnovers from the quarterback this year is way more than Oregon is used to having. So that might be a cause of concern. But with that being said, Jordan James he had his best game of the year so far, I think. I think he played really good in the Oregon State game as well, but they need to get him going. He is the one of the stars of this offense. And he might be the biggest player on any given night. He has that level of talent. So they need a big game from him against Ohio State. They need a big game from Tez Johnson. He played well in this game as well. And, Evan Stewart, nobody's really talking about this. You guys know Evan Stewart only has like 170 yards or something like that. Like he has not been a big contributor for Oregon this year, which is pretty interesting to me. But I mean, it is what it is. When you transfer, you always take that risk of going somewhere and just not being a top dog there. So he might transfer again after this year. But Oregon, they're loaded, incredibly talented on offense and defense. I do think they're going to beat Ohio State next week. So can't wait for that game. Next up, we got Miami. Listen, I am really disappointed in Miami's performance this week, coming off the Virginia Tech game, right? And then coming off a bye after that game, I believe. Like they had a bunch of time to sit down and think about playing a team that Florida State beat, by the way. Cal was Florida State's only win. You had a lot of time to regroup and prove to yourselves and to everybody else that you are a serious contender, and the Virginia Tech game was just a fluke. But it wasn't a fluke because they went life and death with Cal, another bad ACC team. And I know they beat Auburn, but everybody beats Auburn. It's on, it's not, they lost to Florida State. Cam Ward yet again had a really, really good game. This offense, you can't blame the offense. The offense balled out. Xavier Restrepo, the run game was working. It's the defense, man, that I called really, really good. And now they turned it over a lot against Virginia Tech, so they get a little bit of a pass there. But back-to-back games against bad ACC teams, they're letting them move the ball at will. Like it's really concerning for me because if you play Clemson with how good Clemson's offense is looking, that's a bad matchup for Miami, man. Like that is not a good team. You do not want to play Clemson right now if you're Miami, just based off how your defense is looking. It's not they've given up like what 70 plus points the last two games. Like they got to lock in defensively. The offense, we know how good it is. I I said this was the best offense in the country on paper before the season. I think I'm right about that. But defensively, man, I had way higher expectations for them, and they are just not living up to the hype right now. So and Miami needs to lock in defensively. But I mean, listen, regardless of what happens, as long as they beat whoever next week, they're going to be number four because Oregon, Ohio State's going to drop. And I mean, it's only up from there because I mean, Texas and Georgia plays after that, by the way. So my top four all play each other the next 2 or 3 weeks, I think. So Miami will be three regardless if they just keep winning. So I mean, Miami, the sky really is the limit for them in terms of the rankings. Like, and if they win the ACC championship game, they might be the number one team in the country at 13-0. But at the way they're playing, it does look like right now they're going to drop a game, just some random ACC team. So Miami really does need to lock in. In this next game right here. What do I say, bro? I literally came on this last video apologizing to Miami for the years of hate and doubt and saying they're washed and this and that. I literally apologized because that was like the most impressive win I've ever seen Alabama have. And then they come in next week and lose to Vanderbilt. By the way, this makes Missouri's close win over Vanderbilt not look bad at all. But Alabama came in and lost as the number one team in the country to Vanderbilt. Can't blame it on the offense, really. You'd love to run the ball more, but they were down from the jump, so you couldn't really run the ball that much. Jalen Murrow, he played a good game. Ryan Williams, he came to play 35 points. If you score 35 points on Vanderbilt in the past, you should have expected to win 35-7. Okay? This is embarrassing. This was the worst defensive game. I heard Bama fans say this is the worst defensive game in Alabama history. And I'm inclined to agree. Zero sacks, zero takeaways on Vanderbilt. You lost a turnover battle to Vanderbilt 2-0. What do I say? What do I say about this game? Besides Alabama, I have no idea. You beat Georgia, you lose to Vanderbilt. What's going on in college football? Is this the biggest upset ever? Is the question. Because you have Alabama, the like the hallmark, the shining star of college football. And then you have Vanderbilt, which is the joke, literally the laughing stock of the SEC forever. They were like 0-60 versus top five opponents, and they beat Alabama right after Alabama's massive win. They're number one in the country. This is certainly the biggest upset I've ever seen in my like 2 or 3 years of paying attention to college football. But man, Alabama lost to Van. What do I take away from this game? I don't know because I what can I take away from this? Because I've seen with my own two eyes Alabama dominate Georgia for a half. But the last 6 quarters of Alabama football has been really, really bad. So I got to drop them all the way down to six. But it's like I don't know. They could lose to teams below them here. They could beat teams. They have beaten teams above them. I have no idea what to think about Alabama right now. So I'm just gonna move on. Next up, uh, next up, we have Ole Miss at 7. They beat South Carolina. They had a good bounce back win. This defense, by the way, even against Kentucky, this defense looks amazing, man. I have to say that right away. The defense is amazing. Jackson Dart, he played well, not great. He wasn't throwing the ball all that accurately in this game, but they got the run game going a little bit. I wish they would lean more into that. I know they don't have Judkins anymore, but like, where's Bentley, man? Where's Rashard Amos? Like, they have some guys on this team that kind of just like they're kind of treating Henry Parrish like he's just their bell cow back. And don't get me wrong, I think he's talented. I think he's good, but I wish they'd get more creative with this run game and lean into that more. Trey Harris got hurt, unfortunately. I hope I really do hope Trey Harris comes back healthy. Because they need him. He is the star of this team. He's one of the best receivers in the entire country. I think he leads all receivers in yards right now, just statistically, and he got hurt this game. He needs to come back quickly. Because they play LSU next week. Uh, what else? Juice Wells had a pretty bad game. His biggest play was like 70 yards, but he fumbled like right in the end zone, so it was a touchback. He had a pretty rough game against his former team. But yeah, Ole Miss, their defense is legit. Jackson Dart, we know he's good. They just, I mean, the LSU game is actually pretty big because I think LSU is ranked like number 12 in the AP poll. So the winner of that game is going to be like top eight, top nine. So really, really, well, LSU would be top eight, top nine with a win there. And Ole Miss, if Ole Miss beat LSU next week, they probably wouldn't jump any in my rankings to be honest, unless one of these top six teams lost. So let's say Oregon lost to Ohio State, Ole Miss beat LSU. Then I'd move them above Oregon, probably. But that's kind of it. So yeah, Ole Miss at 7, and it looks like they're going to stay at 7 for the near future. Penn State at 8. I have no idea how Penn State's like number 4 or 5 in the AP poll. This game wasn't even that impressive. This game was really not very impressive at all. They beat the worst team in the Big Ten by 16 points, and they couldn't run the ball. That is very concerning to me. Um, the presumed stars on this offense, they just don't look like stars to me. Drew Aller back to back weeks has been whatever. Harrison Wallace, the guy who had a big game in week 1 against West Virginia, nowhere to be found. The run game, Nick Singleton was out, so they only had one running back, which means they couldn't run the ball. Defensively, they played well, but it's UCLA. Like it's just Penn State. They just have not impressed me, man. Even their big win against Illinois in at home in the whiteout game in the craziest environments, they just look bad for the majority of that game. So I don't know. Their defense still looks legit, which is what you need if you're Penn State this year. They don't look like they have a big fall off in this defense. So Penn State will probably go 11-1. They'll probably make the college football playoff. I'm hoping. I think they play Washington. I'm hoping Washington beats them or somebody, just so they can be 10-2, and they probably won't be able to sneak into the playoff because I just don't believe in Penn State, bro. I do not believe in Penn State. And the guy is talking about Drew Aller as an NFL prospect. Shut the fuck up. He has never looked good in a single big game he has played. Never. And that applies to the Illinois game earlier as well. Like it's just Penn State. I'm a Penn State hater. I'm a Penn State doubter, and I will not believe that they are capable of doing anything yet this season. Notre Dame, they had a bye week. You know, Notre Dame. I did not think Notre Dame would be able to work their way back into the top 10. I wrote them off after the loss to Northern Illinois. But they have embraced the style of football that I said they should, which is just forget about throwing the ball, run the ball down every other team's throat because you can, because your offensive line's better. Your quarterback can run for 100 plus yards a game. Like you have the same offensive coordinator that was at LSU last year. Like just focus on running the ball, please, and you can actually still make the playoff. And that's what they've been committed to these last 3 games, and it's been working for them. We know how good Notre Dame's defense is. If you look at the teams that they play this year, right? Notre Dame, I think their toughest remaining game is USC. That's their toughest game left in their schedule, I think. So, like, you cannot tell me that they cannot just pound the fucking ball against everybody the rest of the year, coast their way. They could win every game by double digits the rest of the year, coast their way to 11-1 and enter the playoffs as a top 6 or 7 seed. Like they absolutely could do that. Let's see if they stay committed and focus on that because we know about the defense and we know about what they could be as a running team. At number 10, I got Tennessee. They lost to Arkansas on the road. I don't know what to think about this game. This is the thing. I don't know why people were so convinced after what 4 games against nobodies. Like I hyped up the NC State game, but it turns out NC State's terrible. They beat what Kennesaw State. They beat some of the nobodies. Why are people so gassed up after 4 blowouts of nobodies that Tennessee was going to go on and win a national championship? Nico is a young quarterback. Right now, he's playing like a bad quarterback. Tennessee's offensive line looked bad this week. I mean, they were able to run the ball, but this is the problem with these teams that have to go hurry up every single play is that when you can't move the ball and you're going hurry up every play, you just look like an idiot. Like that's what Tennessee would run to the line, 5 seconds, run to the line, throw an incompletion right away. Sprint to the line, throw an incompletion. How about you take your fucking time, read what the defense is giving you, and make the best decision based off that. Not just you don't have to just sprint the line every 10 seconds when you got a quarterback throwing for 100 yards a game. Like it makes no sense to me. It does not look like Nico is ready for this offense yet. They have the run game. They still have the defense. Dylan Sampson had a monster game. But the problem with this team, believe it or not, is Nico. And no matter how much the announcers and the commentators gas him up like he's the second coming of whatever, He has not played well. He didn't play well in the NC State game. He didn't play well in this game. Like he's just not ready yet. He's just not ready. Maybe he gets better in this year and they finish 10-2 and they make the play. Whatever. Who knows? But it does not look like they're ready to beat Alabama. It does not look like they're ready to beat Georgia. Like Tennessee is just not ready. And I don't know why he didn't play well against Oklahoma. I forgot about that. He didn't play well against Oklahoma, Arkansas, or NC State. And I don't get it, man. He has had more bad games than good games so far this year. He's too young, man. Maybe next year, the year after next year, they'll have some real chances of doing something special, especially if they get Dylan Sampson back because he's the best player on this team, along with like James Pierce and guys like that. But man, they're just Arkansas was moving the ball though against this defense, this Tennessee defense, supposed to be the best in the country. Arkansas was moving the ball on them. Now Tennessee, they did not break. They did not break a lot of times. They held Arkansas to 0 points in the red zone a lot of times. But man, Arkansas really, I mean, they could have blown Tennessee out this game. If you just compare the yardage and the first downs, it's not even close. So yeah, Tennessee, they look bad, but it's a road game against a not bad SEC team. So that's going to be a tough environment for anybody. Okay. But Tennessee lost. And I don't know what to think. I need to see a good performance from Nico against a good team for me to consider Tennessee back in that upper echelon. Clemson, they beat up on FSU without their starting quarterback. FSU, that is. Klubnik played well. They ran the ball at will. Clemson looks legit, man. This is four straight great performances from Clemson. Defense shut down FSU. Cade Klubnik has just continued to be playing amazing for the last four games. And look, Clemson looks legit. They really do look serious. And if you look at their schedule, they play some teams, right? I think they play Louisville. I think they play Duke. They might play South Carolina, but like they really don't play anybody that would make you like scared of them getting knocked off. Like I could absolutely, just based off how they're playing. I did not say this at all before the season, but based off how they're playing right now, I could absolutely see them running through everybody else and ending up 11-1, right? Because I thought NC State was going to be a big challenge. NC State's terrible, it turns out. I thought Florida State, I thought those were going to be a loss for them, but Florida State's terrible. Like it's just things are working out for Clemson right now, and they might be able to carry this. And I hope they do, honestly, because I want to see 11-1, top 7 or 8 Clemson versus 12-0, top number 1 and number 2 Miami in the ACC championship. Like that would be that would be the biggest ACC championship game ever. So I want to see that badly. I hope I get to see that, but we'll see. Both teams have to hold up their end of the bargain. Next, we got Missouri. Missouri went to Texas A&M, and they put together a really bad performance. Let me say this. Let me say this. It was suspicious early on, okay, because early on, Missouri, they had a fourth down. They had a fourth down, and there was a pass interference. I think it was like their first drive. They had a pass interference on a fourth down, clear PI. The commentator, the rules analyst came in, and he said he thought there should have been a PI. It was not called. Okay, whatever. Then later on, like two drives later, they had a 75-yard touchdown to Luther Burden wiped off the board because of a illegal man downfield or something like that. There was just these stupid penalties, not called or called, that really fucked Missouri. In the they had two touchdown drives in the first half that got wiped off the board because of penalties or not called penalties. I'm not saying it was anything suspicious or home cooking, but I'm just saying if you watch the game, you understand that this could have been a very different result if those things would have been different. Now, it does not; those things do not account for Missouri's defense playing like complete shit. A&M ran the ball down Missouri's throat and they had no answer. Okay, this is very bad showing from Missouri's defense, but I really think that this offense was kind of crippled by those no calls and by the penalty. Okay, so why do I still have Missouri top 12? Why do I still have Missouri above Texas A&M? Because I think if Missouri and A&M played 10 times on a neutral field, I think Missouri wins 6 of those games. That's my opinion. That's my personal opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think A&M is a better team than Missouri. I think they had a lot of help from the refs that game that can change the outcome of this game. But Missouri's defense looked like shit, and A&M's offense looked really, really good. That is a fact of this game. But yeah, Missouri, because Alabama looked terrible. Missouri plays Alabama. Oklahoma looks really bad. Missouri plays Oklahoma. Like Missouri still has a really easy schedule, and I just think they're going to run through a lot of these games still. So I'm not giving up on Missouri because of a weird game against A&M. Next up, we have A&M. If I didn't put them above Missouri, I had to put them right next to Missouri. Listen, I probably should have had them ranked after last week, but I was still being way too skeptical. And I thought they'd lose this game. So I'm like, what's the point of ranking them if they're going to lose to Missouri? They did not lose to Missouri. They blew the fuck out of Missouri. Connor Wegman had his best game that I've ever seen from him. They ran the ball at will, which is interesting because I think they lost their starting running back before the year. Le'Veon Moss balled out 14 touches, 173 yards, 3 touchdowns. And defensively, 6 sacks, 0 takeaways. They did shut down Missouri's offense, especially at the start of the second half. Like they played a great game in this game. So I had to jump them up very much. Since the Notre Dame game, they look really good. Okay, with multiple quarterbacks in there as well. So yeah, A&M up to 13. They look like they might be legit. I mean, I don't know if they're undefeated in the SEC. I don't know what their schedule looks like. I know they play Texas. Do they play Georgia? I'm not sure, but A&M, they look like a legit team this year. And shout out to Mike Elko, who already after 6 games has Texas looking more impressive than Jimbo Fisher did, besides the Alabama win. So next we got Kansas State. Bye week, they jump up 2 spots. Avery Johnson, he has not had the year that people were saying he would, but that's okay because they have DJ Giddens, who is one of the best running backs in the country, on pace for 1,500 plus yards, maybe 16, 17, 1,800 if they make the Big 12 championship game. Defensively, they don't look great. Like they haven't played amazing defensively, but I think they play Colorado. I think they play Colorado this week, which is a massive game for me because those are both highly ranked teams on my list. But this comes down. It's like the same thing with UCF. If they can run the ball on Colorado, which has been difficult, by the way, Colorado, we're going to get to them. I promise we're going to get to them. But like they have to be able to run the ball because if not, I don't think this defense is capable of really shutting down Colorado's offense. And I don't think Avery Johnson is really capable of just picking them apart through the air because he's thrown some picks already. So we'll see. I think they will win, but this will be a very, very interesting game. Oklahoma, they had a bye week. I don't know what to think about Oklahoma. They have 2 different quarterbacks. Oklahoma's offense sucks, but they have 13 takeaways. Um, who would have thought, man? Who would have thought there'd be an Oklahoma team that cannot move the ball but is relying on their defense? That would have been a crazy thought to somebody like 4 or 5 years ago. But yeah, Oklahoma, I don't know what to think. Like they're still ranked for me, but I expect them to lose to Texas this week. I expect them to lose to Missouri. I expect them to lose to some of these other teams. Like I expect them to lose to LSU and Ole Miss. Like I really think Oklahoma's going to go 6-6 or 7-5. So enjoy it while you can, Oklahoma. This will probably be the highest that they are ranked moving forward, unless they somehow manage to beat Texas. I don't know. Next we got Illinois. Illinois, I know they lost to Penn State their last game. They have a bye week right now. I still believe in Illinois. Luke Altmaier's playing pretty well. The run game has not been spectacular, but it's been okay. Defensively, they're playing well defensively. It's just they're a good Big Ten team. That Nebraska win really impressed me from Illinois because if they wouldn't have beat Nebraska, then Nebraska would be like a top 12 team for me right now. But they did go on the road and beat Nebraska, and they did play well against Penn State, especially defensively. But their offense just could not move the ball down the stretch. Yeah, I just think Illinois is a good team. I think they're a good team, and until they lose like another game, I'm going to continue to have them ranked up here above Nebraska. And getting to Nebraska, they really did not play well last week. They beat Rutgers at home, but Rutgers, I mean, they could not move the ball. No, I mean, Rutgers defense really did shut down Nebraska in a way. I mean, Rayola, he's just too young, man. He has not looked great. Like he actually played his best like games like early, which is kind of bad for him because now he's like set up that standard for himself that he has not been able to reach since like week 1. So it's rough for him, but the run game too, like they just offensively, this is their worst game. But this is the good thing. This is the good and the bad. They played their worst game offensively, but their defense is so good that it didn't even matter that they couldn't move the ball because defensively they shut Rutgers down. They made Rutgers look like nobodies, like the old Rutgers, um, defensively. So shout out to Nebraska. They got the job done. Rutgers is a good team. They were my number 21 ranked team. Okay, so they'd be a pretty good team in my eyes at home. So they jump up 3 spots because of that. LSU, they had their bye week. They're putting everything in to beat Ole Miss, hopefully, if you're them. Garrett Nussmeier has looked really, really good so far. I mean, just in terms of his passing numbers might be better than what Jaden Daniels was last year because he obviously was getting it done like through the air and on the ground. Their run game has fallen off a cliff though, because when you miss Jaden, their running backs weren't even that good last year. Their whole run game was Jaden Daniels, and without him, they do not look nearly as good. Um, they've got the run game going more of late, but early in the season it was terrible. Defensively, they haven't played bad, but still 20 points per game, like it's just not that good. 15 sacks is impressive though, but they just lost Harold Perkins. I don't know what to think about LSU. I expect Ole Miss to beat them. If LSU won, that would be crazy. But I don't know, man. They have a good pass game. 15 sacks is really impressive. Everything else, though, I just don't know. I really just don't know when it comes to LSU. So let's move on. Next up at 19, I got Utah. They had their bye week. They dropped one spot because Arizona lost, and since Arizona beat Utah at home, that makes Utah look even worse. Um, no Cam Rising still. I don't think he's coming back. To be honest with you, it's like the fans are trying to run him off campus at this point. They hate him for because he's just choosing not to play. The defense at times it looks really good, but I don't know what to think about Utah. They're a team where everybody thinks so. They're going to win the Big 12. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. But they got to look good first. They went life and death with Oklahoma State, which is a bad team. They lost at home to Arizona, who is 3-2. I don't know. I have no idea what to think about Utah. I think Colorado would beat them if they played next week. So take that for what you will. Speaking of Colorado, I got Colorado at number 20. And I'm thinking about it now. I probably should have had them above Utah, but listen, they played their best game ever under the Deion Sanders era against UCF in their last week. You got a bye week now. Shadur has looked good. He's made mistakes. He played really bad against Nebraska, and his first drive against fucking UCF, he threw like a pick six basically. That was bad, right? The run game though, even though they only run for 80 yards a game, last year was like 50. Okay, so they've got the run game really going, like the last two or three games, starting against like Colorado State, I think. Colorado State, Baylor, and UCF, they've been able to run the ball really well. Travis Hunter, we know how good he is. He's a Heisman candidate for sure. One of the best players in the country. And then defensively, these numbers might not be that impressive, but all of them are so much better than what they were last year. Like Dion said a stat. Uh, they have not allowed a 100-yard rusher or receiver yet this year. Like that's pretty fucking impressive when you think about them, especially compared to last. Like that's really impressive. Um, so yeah, Colorado. I don't know what to expect from them, but they are legit contenders in the Big 12. They play Kansas, they play Arizona, they play Utah, they play Kansas State. They play pretty much everybody. I think they play Oklahoma State as well. So they play everybody in the Big 12. So they have a chance to play spoiler for a lot of these teams. So keep an eye on that. But I have Colorado on my top 20 now for the first time ever, I think. Boise State at 21 for me. They put up 62 points on Utah State. Maddox Mason, the quarterback, he played well. Obviously, Ashton Jeanty, he's the whole thing of the team. He is the Heisman for me. He's breaking records in college football at the running back position. If you do that, you have to be the Heisman. Too many running backs have been Heisman for a guy who breaks records at running back not to be, especially when the other guy, there is not a transformational, a generational quarterback this year. Cam Ward's playing great. Jalen Milroe's playing great, but there is not a generational quarterback this season. It's between Gene T and Travis Hunter, in my opinion. And Gene T, what Travis Hunter's doing is so impressive. But Gene T is just more impressive, in my opinion. But Travis Hunter's doing it at the power four level. But I don't know. If I had to pick, I'd go with Ashton Jeanty. But Travis Hunter, he also deserves it. He really does. Back to Boise State though, 500 plus yards allowed to Spencer Petras at Utah State. Not good, not good from Boise State's defense. But listen, they play the Mountain West schedule. Will they go undefeated? I think so. I think they will. I mean, just based on unless Jeanty gets hurt, which obviously knock on wood, you don't want that to happen. But it just looks like nobody can stop him. 5 games, five insane stat lines. So yeah, Boise State there for 21 for me. And I could see them finishing all the way up at like damn near top like 12 or 13. Indiana at 22 for me. They jump up. All these teams jump up a lot because they all won in convincing fashion. Indiana beat Northwestern. They start off 6-0. Shout out to their coach, by the way. I think he was the coach of James Madison last year. He comes to Northwestern, or he comes, sorry, to Indiana. He brings his star receiver, Elijah Surratt, with him. Curtis Rourke, I think he played at Ohio last year. He played somewhere where it's like you just don't know who this guy is. He is balling out this year. He is absolutely balling out for Indiana so far this year. And the offense is explosive. They're averaging like 40 points per game. The run games look good. Elijah Surratt, he is a star receiver. He's looking like one of the best receivers in the entire Big Ten. And defensively, I mean, 24 points to Northwestern, that's fine. You take that. So, yeah, man. Indiana, who would have thought, man? I really thought Indiana was one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. I thought this was a rebuild year for them, like 3, 4 wins if you're lucky. Like 6-0, that is beyond impressive for Indiana. And shout out to them. They're bowl eligible. They're eligible now. It doesn't matter what happens from this point on. Indiana fans should be happy with the season because they're sky high right now. Next up, I got Navy. They beat Air Force convincingly. It's just Navy. They are a military school who has a pass game. That is very interesting to me. And you might say, pass game? What do you mean? Their quarterback, they get a lot, and I mean a lot of explosive pass plays, like a lot. Okay. They average, like, they're probably like not even bottom 50 in terms of passing yards per game. Maybe they are, but like they're not where you expect a military school to be. They get a lot of explosive pass plays and pass touchdowns. And defensively, they played really well. I mean, they beat Memphis. They did beat Memphis. That's a signature win for them. They're 5-0. I have to give credit where credit's due. I think they beat a lot of teams, bro. So I got Navy up here at 23. Next up, we got Washington. Washington, this is the sad thing about Washington. They should be 6-0. They should be 6-0. They should be like a top 8, top 9, top 10 team in the country. But unfortunately, they just beat themselves against Rutgers and against Washington State, who both, by the way, are not bad teams either. But they beat Michigan at home convincingly. They missed a field goal as well. It really should have been a way bigger score, anyways. But they beat Michigan at home. Will Rogers, he played well. They ran the ball when they wanted to. Um, 4 players over 60 yards. Giles Jackson and Denzel Boston each had massive games. Defensively, they shut down Michigan. Michigan couldn't throw the ball against Washington. The run game, it looked okay, but Michigan, they haven't been able to throw the ball against anybody, and that was true this game as well. So Washington, they're back up at 24 for me. I don't know what to think. I really don't know. They should be 6-0. I think they can beat anybody on their schedule now. I don't think they play Ohio State, so it's like they could beat Penn State. I absolutely think that, especially if it's in Washington. If it's in Penn State, that's a tough game. But like, man, Washington, I don't know what to think about them. They can beat anybody. They can lose to anybody. I don't know. I don't know. So I got them up here at 24 right now. Next up, we got SMU. They beat the SMU was on my list to start the year, but then they just had some bad performances like against like BYU. They lost. They had a bad performance, I think, against who was it? Like their very first game. I thought they played pretty bad. So I kind of wrote them off. But here they come after beating ranked Louisville on the road. Louisville was a very good. Louisville went life and death Notre Dame last week, so this is a very good win for SMU in my opinion. Um, Kevin Jennings, he was the backup last year, becomes the starter this year, takes it from Preston Stone, and he just had the best game of his career, almost 400 yards and a touchdown. They ran the ball at will. I mean, they kind of dominated Louisville from an offensive standpoint. Like Louisville could not slow SMU down. 4 players over 50 yards. SMU's tight end is a monster. Defensively, Louisville had a lot of big plays, but SMU's offense was just more dynamic, was more explosive than Louisville's was. So they win the game, a great game on the road. And SMU, if you look at it, their only loss was out of conference, so they're undefeated right now in the ACC. Could they be a sleeper team? Could SMU be a sleeper team in the ACC? I thought it was Louisville. I thought Louisville was a sleeper team, but SMU now is coming on strong. We'll see. Keep a close eye on SMU, and maybe they lose next week. That I feel like that's the type of thing SMU would do, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with them. Arkansas, they jump up 5 spots to be number 26 for me. They got to get some type of credit for that win over Tennessee. I know they're 4-2, but I mean, listen, if you beat a top, I think Tennessee was like number 4 though nationally. They were number 7 for me. But if you beat a top 10 team at home, you got to get some credit for that. Taylon Green, the transfer quarterback, I thought he played really well. I thought he looked good against Oklahoma State. I wish they would have beat Oklahoma State, man. They actually would be like ranked like top 20 in the AP poll right now if that would have happened. But they lost, unfortunately, on the road to Oklahoma State. But Taylon Green, I thought he's looked good every game I've seen from Arkansas. He's moved the ball really, really well. The run game, they weren't really able to get it going, but it still helped them in the end. Andrew Armstrong had a massive game for Arkansas. I mean, he was a baller this week. Um, and defensively, I mean, you can't give enough credit to the Arkansas defense for shutting down this explosive Tennessee offense. Like they really did shut it down. Um, Especially like just getting after Nico and making him uncomfortable. So Arkansas with a massive SEC win, who could they beat? They've lost to A&M in Oklahoma State. I don't really know who they play on the schedule coming up, but it's like after this game, you have to expect that Arkansas, especially at home, is a real threat to everybody in the SEC. So I don't keep a close eye, man, on Arkansas. This might not be the last upset they pull off this year. Next we got Michigan. They lost obviously on the road to an unranked Washington team, even unranked by me. Um, they can't go. They Michigan has. I'm gonna say it. I think Michigan has the worst pass game in the country. I really believe that. Even worse than the military schools, like because they have the chance to get an explosive play. Michigan explosive pass plays are just off the table. It's just not happening. Um, the run game was good, but here's the thing about Michigan's defense has looked bad. It looked bad against USC. It looked bad this game against Washington. It looked bad last week against Minnesota. Michigan's defense, which is supposed to be top five, number one in the country, they've looked bad. Their last 3 or 4 games, like Michigan, we're 6 weeks in to the season, and Michigan has two bad losses, and they have not even won a game in impressive fashion yet. Like, think about that, man. Michigan is a joke of a team right now with no pass game, an overrated defense, overrated running back. Well, it's his best game of the season, by the way. But like Michigan's a joke, man. They dropped 13 spots for me, and unless they really look impressive, I might just drop out of my rankings entirely. They really don't even deserve to be ranked right now if you're Michigan because they don't have a ranked one because USC is not ranked anymore. So yeah, Michigan, they're a joke. Moving on. On the shit. Next up, we got Vanderbilt. I have to get Vanderbilt. Listen, you can't beat the number one team in the country. You can't have a winning record and not be ranked. It's a joke that they are not ranked in the AP poll right now. Diego Pavia with the game of his life. They actually ran the ball against Alabama. Eli Stowers, 6 catches, 133 yards. Their running back had 2 touchdowns, I think. The defense, even with 2 takeaways, like, man, Vanderbilt with their best win in program history. They will remember this game forever. I have no idea what they're going to do moving forward. They could finish 4-8 for all I know, but they deserve to be ranked, and I am going to rank them after this game. So shout out to Vanderbilt. They're number 28 for me. Iowa State 5-0. They beat up on Baylor. Dave Aranda is probably going to get fired there, but Iowa State. This is my first time. I know that they've been undefeated. I saw that they beat Iowa, but it's like it's Iowa. Who cares? But they have two receivers over 400 yards, which is really interesting to me. They run the ball very well defensively, only giving up 10 points per game right now. 11 takeaways. Like Iowa State, they're playing some really good football. It's weird that like the biggest sleepers right now, the top teams in the Big 12 are like Colorado, Iowa State, BYU, Texas Tech. It's like the Big 12 right now. The sleeper teams are kind of dominating right now. When the big teams, Arizona, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Utah, like they all have losses. Meanwhile, we got Utah State, Texas Tech, and I think Baylor, who are all undefeated in the Big 12 so far. So that's really interesting to me. But yeah, Iowa State, they've looked good. They've looked good. I don't know when their first big game is. They haven't played one of these big dogs in the Big 12 yet. But when that happens, keep an eye on Iowa State, man. They've been really quiet so far. But I'm sure their fans are really happy with their 5-0 start. They look dangerous. They do look dangerous so far. Army, I got it, number 30. They're 5-0. They beat up on Tulsa. Their quarterback, 15 touchdowns, no interceptions. He has made some plays. It's not just through the run game. They do have an amazing run game. 361 yards per game, 6.8 yards per carry, 21 rushing touchdowns. Noah Short, he's a running back for them, 35 touches, 556 yards, 5 touchdowns. Army, they just look like a really good offense. I mean, obviously, they mainly get it through running the ball, but it's like, let me pitch a scenario to you. 12-0 Army plays 12-0 Navy. Both teams ranked in the top 15. They play for the 11-0 Army, 11-0 Navy. They're both ranked in the top 15, 16. They play their game the final week of the regular season. Then they play the week after that for the AAC championship, and potentially the winner of the first game a spot in the college football playoff. That is a real possibility that we have to talk about right now for Navy and Army because they are both playing at such a high level right now. Army's giving up less than 10 points per game defensively. So it's like they have the best run game and defense combo in the country right now. Like neither of them play like a big dog in their schedule. Like this is a real possibility that I'm very excited for potentially happening here. Next up, these are the teams that have been dropped from the rankings. They are shunned. They are embarrassments to the country. Louisville, I already talked about. They lost to SMU. Just embarrassing, man. You can't give up defensively, right? Like they got 0 sacks, 0 takeaways. They let SMU move the ball at will on them. I was let down big time by Louisville's offense this game. I was expecting a lot more, and I just did not get it. I thought Isaac Brown and Ja'Cory Brooks, they look like stars, honestly. The running back, Isaac Brown, he's a freshman, I think. He is just so explosive. He's making big plays all over the place. And Ja'Cory Brooks, he was a key contributor for Alabama like 2 years ago, but he fell off the face of the earth. I don't know where he went. He bounced back. He found a home here in Louisville, and he's balling out for them. So I'm happy with that. But overall, really bad loss for Louisville. They're 3-2 now. I have to drop them entirely from the rankings. Um, they basically just traded spots with A&M. So they drop 18, A&M jumps 18. So yeah, that's that. Arizona, they lost to Texas Tech. Noah Fafita, he's just not ready. I just don't think Noah Fafita is ready. He has not even had a great game. Even the game where McMillan had like 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. Even then, it's just like I don't know, man. I don't know. Noah Fafita just he doesn't look good enough right now. He's making too many mistakes. The run game is actually good for Arizona. They don't lean into it enough for some reason. McMillan had 8 catches for 161 yards. He's a top 5 pick without a shadow of a doubt. And defensively they played good. I mean, if you hold Texas Tech to 28 points, you got to win that game. But no Fafita, 2 interceptions, they lost. So tough game for Arizona. Rutgers, they obviously lost Nebraska. Their quarterback's terrible. He's looked absolutely terrible the last 2 weeks. And this he looks like the guy that I remember from Minnesota. He finally is showing his true form here. They couldn't run the ball. But guy, he still had 96 yards, but it wasn't enough. Their offense and their quarterback just got absolutely shut down by Nebraska's defense. So they drop out the rankings for me. Their first loss of the year. USC. I'm so glad. I'm so happy that I don't have to hear a single word the rest of the year about USC and Michigan. People are trying to act like that was a top 15 game in Ann Arbor. And I was trying to tell people that was like the number 19 team playing the number 24 team in Michigan. And it turns out that's what happened because both these teams got embarrassed by Minnesota in back-to-back weeks. So Miller Moss, he had his worst game. Defensively, I thought they played well, but 2 interceptions against Minnesota, you're going to lose that game. So yeah, USC they cannot handle the Big Ten, and it's finally starting to show itself. They can handle the SEC. They beat LSU. Sorry, I'm talking way too fast. You can beat LSU, but apparently you can't beat fucking Minnesota. So embarrassing loss for USC right there. They're out of the rankings for me. James Madison, man, after back-to-back amazing performances from James Madison, they come out here and lose to fucking UL Monroe of all teams. It's just embarrassing. It's a joke. I thought there was some hope here with the James Madison Part 2 storyline, but unfortunately that was not the case. And it was their offense that let them down. Who would have thought? Offense put up 130 points back-to-back weeks, or combined the last 2 weeks, and they put up 19 against Louisville. It's just embarrassing. Duke. Duke is finally not number 26 anymore, and it's because they lost Georgia Tech and Malik Murphy. This offense, I don't know what it is, but it's like they have some players in this offense. Jordan Moore, the receiver, Star Thomas, the running back, Malik Murphy, the quarterback. Their offense should be way better than what it is. They have not been impressive like at all to me offensively this year. It's been 6 games, and I've yet to be impressed by their offense. So defensively, I thought they played well. They held Georgia Tech to 24 points, but Duke has to figure it out offensively if they want to get to like an 8-9 win season for them. Moving on, Memphis. They had a bye week. I dropped them to like 4 spots because I don't know, man. It's something about Memphis. I don't know. I like the run. I like the running back Marlon Anderson. I really like the quarterback Stephen again. They could still go 11-1 and maybe make the AAC championship game. Defensively, I thought they've actually been playing like pretty solid so far defensively, especially compared to where they were last year. But I don't know, man. It's just something about Memphis. They have not played well enough for me to rank them. So we'll see if they play better now coming off the bye week. And here's some other teams that I just thought like deserved an honorable mention. They're close to being ranked, but they're not ranked yet. Um, yeah, man. Liberty's 5-0. They recently won their game in overtime though, so maybe I won't rank them. But yeah, a lot of still undefeated teams down here. Liberty 5-0, Pitt 5-0, BYU 5-0. there's a lot of still undefeated potential teams here in the college football year. So keep a close eye on that. Listen, man, that's gonna be it for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I will see y'all in the next one. So, peace.